I'm so pleased to be the moderator for today's session on sustainable investment in luxury tourism properties for the Global Tourism Forum. So is sustainable luxury possible? With this in mind, I'm so pleased to introduce the panellists. So firstly, we have Mr. Michael Scully. So Michael is the founder and head of, first and foremost, hotel asset development and management company. So Mike has a wealth of expertise covering 3 continents, developed and managed 8 first-class resorts, hotels and mixed-use developments with over 70 bespoke restaurants and bars. So thanks, Mike, for organising this today. Aaron Mcgrath. So with over 25 years of professional hospitality experience, Aaron is the regional GM in Saudi Arabia for 6 Senses Resorts, and before this, 6 Senses in Bay. Aaron holds both a diploma in hotel management from the Hotel Institute in Montreux and an MBA from the EHL in Switzerland. And finally, we have Dr. Emma Wong, who is a program director at the Blue Mountains International Hotel Group in Australia. Emma has over 20 years of experience in higher education, working in Hong Kong, Australia, Germany, UK, mainland China, and her specialism includes tourism policy and sustainable destination development. So thank you, guys. It's great to see you all. So I think so cracking on. We've got 30 minutes to go through some really key pieces, but the first thing, Mike, I'd like to direct this one to you, and it's around selective sustainability. And predominantly it's around millennials. So we know that millennials are twice as likely to support brands with strong sustainability policies, and they want brands to actually communicate it. But also it doesn't take away from the fact they do want to have luxury. So Mike, what's your take on that?
Well, I think we're heading for a very selective world of tourism, certainly a newly found selective world of tourism, on the basis that we know that particularly when we're talking about long haul tourism and a lot of the luxury sector of tourism is in the long haul sector, where a large number, we were talking about it earlier, a large number of the wide-bodied planes, certainly the 380s, the 747s, have been scrapped and or put into hibernation as such. And when we start looking at the selective sector of this tourism and the cost involved in being able to travel the destination with lower capacity and still a very high supply factor that we've got, only because of the tourism was going so well for so long, with new destinations, new hotels, and a serious amount of lift. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be seeing a case of those that can afford and those that can't afford. And we've always had this aspect of confusion within the sort of millennial side of travel, where they like to have the luxury and they like to have everything associated with everything that is not sustainable. However, when they're buying and they're purchasing sustainable product. So it's a quandary, and it's going to be very interesting to see how this pans out over the next 5 years, probably.
Mm-hmm. Aaron, do you have anything to add on that? From your side.
Yes, look, I think certainly from a luxury hospitality perspective, we're seeing a real drive for our guests who are looking for holiday experiences that do have an element of sustainability in that. We find that particularly the sorts of guests that are coming into Six Senses hotels and into the luxury market in general, they tend to be very well read. They tend to be very much up on current affairs, and so certainly there is that I guess passion or vision that they're looking for a hotel experience that does deliver on its promise to being sustainable and being good for the environment. And I think more so now, even with the current COVID situation that we find ourselves in, there is clearly very much a focus towards wellness. But I think wellness and sustainability in many respects are somehow intertwined.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's another thing which came up around this sort of selective sustainability is that, bearing in mind about the conversation about millennials and their expectations, what responsibility do you believe that banks and lenders have in the drive for sustainability? Perhaps Mike or Emma, if you have any comments on that, that'd be great, because I think it's a very, very interesting topic.
Okay, I'll start. I believe that the world that we're going into now, where it comes to hotels, particularly in development, we're not quite sure how much development is going to carry on in the next probably 5 to 10 years, on the basis that we could find that we've got a huge oversupply, and a lot of what we're probably going to say now may not work. On the other hand, you might find that there's going to be a lot of development in areas which are possibly closer to home and to demand to service local markets to a bigger extent. But in essence, I believe that sustainability is going to really take hold, which it has to do. I mean, there's no two ways about it. It has to be led by the banks and the lenders as such, and the institutions who lend. And very often you've got institutions, but the institutions are backed by banks. And we've seen a situation over the last number of years that the banks have been very, very insistent on owners having brands and as operators, any of the big international companies, and in a lot of cases won't actually lend unless there's a brand associated or an operator associated. And you can obviously understand that from one sense, but there's a negative side to that insistence on the basis of a cost factor. And if you take an average brand fees being in the region of anything between, it can be 12 to 15% total cost by the time everything has been allocated into it. It's a tremendous cost for hotel owners and investors, and I think we're going to have to see a more of a split between the cost of developing sustainability and the insistence of sustainability being included into the development cost, as much as the insistence that an operator be taken at the fees that they do. And I think that you might find that depending on location, depending on area, obviously there is a big difference between your huge hotel structures within cities and your more sustainable, obvious resort properties where you're using a lot of local product and possibly a lot of your local building material. You're making it as natural as possible, and I think there you don't have such a big sustainable issue as such with it. But the banks are really going to have to come on board, and we're talking about the top of the structure. And I know Erin's got a point with Six Senses and where they've developed the responsibility within the operator level, and I'm saying that really what you're doing, you've got to do that, but it's got to come way higher than that to get any meaningful sustainable impact onto the industry. And so, Aaron, I know you've kind of probably had many conversations at Six Senses about this, but what's your take? Because this is a very interesting one, because you have on one side this tremendous impact which is being created by this pandemic. So you've got the hotels, the owners, you've got your investors, your lenders. We don't know when it's really going to finish. So the true cost implications we have to then look at. But what's been happening your end? Because I think the brand itself is a testament for what everyone should be doing.
Yeah, certainly. So look, I think the discussion is incredibly interesting, and I think certainly, I recall as we were starting to get into sustainability 20 odd years ago, the cost implications of operating and building a sustainable business was pretty expensive. It came at a premium. And I think there wasn't a lot of information available at the time about how sustainable hotel operations should be run. And that's something that businesses like Six Senses have been at the leading edge of. But I think in more recent years, Mary, what's interesting is that certainly we see sustainability nowadays as not just being great for the environment, not just being great from a what our customers are looking for perspective, but I also find more and more now that there is actually a cost-saving element to being a sustainable operation. We're actually seeing economies of scale. We're seeing more efficient equipment being put into our hotels. We're seeing more efficient energy consumption, for example, in our properties. We're seeing much better supply and delivery elements that are coming in. We're sourcing fruit and vegetables more in closer proximity. We're lowering carbon emissions. And so, I think that perhaps 20 years ago, being a sustainable hotel operator was something that came at a premium. Whereas I think now, and certainly as we go into the future, being a sustainable operator is actually going to lead to cost savings. And I suspect that's why financial lenders and so on are perhaps looking to brands who have a good footprint and a good experience in operating sustainably, because they see that perhaps as the way forward and the way of the future. And I tend to agree with that.
And Emma, from your side, amazing papers, but do you believe that hotels and tourism are really committed to sustainability? So we've got the cost piece, what's your take? And your expertise is incredible around this area.
I think we see a spectrum of operators and destinations. We've got some that are very engaged in the sustainability agenda. For example, in the small island developing states, in South Pacific, for example, we're talking about Samoa, Tonga, Fiji. These small island states are very vulnerable to climate change, and for them, adapting to climate change, sustainability is on top of their agenda because it is their existential issue of the generation. Whereas we've also seen, especially I would say more urban destinations, urban operators, they may not be as engaged because it is not something, look, they would do things like reducing water use, recycling and whatnot. But that is where they stop. And I think this is where, in one of my papers, I argue that whereas these programs are really good, having a sustainable program that engages the local community and having that awareness in environmental protection, that's really good. What I would like to see moving forward is that destinations and operators, they actually actively advocate sustainability in their business. And they would align their suppliers, their business partners to have that same level of awareness in their business. And that's hopefully going to happen in the next few years. Oh, Mary, we can't hear you.
Sorry, mute. Mike, how have you seen it over the years in your professional opinion around what Emma's just said?
Well, obviously Emma's exactly right. You've got a situation where you've got different commitments coming out of different bodies, and you've got those who pretend to be sustainable and do just enough to satisfy what they believe to be what the market wants, and then you get to the other end of the spectrum where you're getting those who are going the full hog and really making an effort to do every aspect of sustainability. And I know it's been mentioned a couple of times. It's the plastic straw, the single-use syndrome, where and I mean, I saw this. I've seen this almost everywhere I've gone. Signs on all over the hotels say, we believe in single use. Now, no one is deriding the fact that single-use plastic use is massively important, particularly when you're starting to talk about the sea and resorts and wherever they are. But the single-use aspect of plastic is such a tiny drop in the ocean. Excuse the pun. We've got to really go way beyond that. And whether it's investing in wind power, investing in wave power, and looking at your whole supply chain, the type of trucks that people are are using when they're coming and delivering to you, the staff housing, the whole eco structure and the economic structure of wherever you are, and particularly if you're on an island where it can be quite small. I mean, we were running islands in the Maldives, and the type of technology coming in, where we would be heating water from using the heat from the exhaust of the generator, and you just got to go on and on to drive down the costs as much as you can, and your environmental footprint as much as possible. But I think what we've really got to be doing is what I'm alluding to is the fact that all these are little things. The industry has to come in right from the top. It's got to start with the lenders. It's got to start with the big brands. It's got to go right into the heart of manufacturing and building philosophy, because that is where we find that the biggest environmental damage is coming. And you only have to read reports about the cruise industry and what today's cruise ships, and certainly I'm sure the most modern ones are not nearly as polluting as the ones that were out there 10 years ago. But the ship and ocean liner business is highly polluting, and this has to change. And if they don't change, if you're looking at the model or the type of clientele that they've got at present, who may not be that negatively influenced by the fact that it's not as sustainable as it could be. And certainly, as we see the millennials and the Gen Zs and the sector of the travel industry, which is coming through now and are so sustainable conscious, that these industries have to change quite dramatically in order to maintain. And we are, and I think certainly because of COVID now, we've got a new industry. It's on every aspect. I mentioned it just earlier on about the lift. The lift is going to determine a whole new industry. Sustainability is going to be a whole new industry. The cost of travel is going to determine a whole new industry, and we really have to come to grips with it now as an industry. And really, the bigger the players that get involved, the more successful it's going to be in the short, medium, and long term.
Mm-hmm. Mary, if I could add to what Michael was saying, I think it is also about making sustainability as a principle of decision making throughout the organization, from the top, the board level, the banks and whatnot, down to line managers. So it is really about embedding that value in decision making. It's just like as if you are making any decision in the business, the first thing you look at is profitability. But if we could make sustainability a criterion as important as profitability, I think we will be making some good progress.
Yeah, and that's actually, Emma, I had that as a question saying, do you believe there's a place for sustainability directors on the board? And you just answered that very clearly. But Aaron, from your side, I mean, you do have the most, again, Six Senses, you have the most incredible sustainability policy and focus on sustainability.
Yeah, look, Mary, I think it's a very interesting point that we're discussing, and I think we've certainly come from a greater sense of awareness. The travelling public, certainly our guests that are coming to stay, have an increased level of awareness. I think perhaps one of the challenges that we're going to face is the ability for us to be agile enough to, in our businesses, actually deploy the sustainability initiatives and sustainability concepts that our guests are now coming to more increasingly expect of a hotel stay or a resort stay. And I think there is perhaps a challenge, particularly with some of the bigger corporate entities, to be able to come up with best practice sustainable initiatives that are not greenwashing, that are real sustainable initiatives that need to be deployed and rolled out into our hotels and resorts. But now there is a challenge of our ability to be agile enough to roll those out quickly and to make meaningful impact now. I certainly agree with Emma that, over time, the concept of sustainability is going to increasingly become ingrained in everything we do, but I don't think we're there yet, certainly not today. And so what's super important for us at Six Senses is that at every one of our properties, we actually have a sustainability manager. And until recent years, that title, that responsibility has fallen on the general manager's shoulders. And you may well have a very sustainably oriented GM, or you may not. By bringing a sustainability manager into each and every one of our operations, we have now embedded a specialist, an expert, someone who maybe won't fall foul of the greenwashing trap, someone who can actually make meaningful sustainability initiatives within the resorts and make them happen. But I think more importantly, Mary, just recently, we've elevated those sustainability manager positions into a very senior leadership role. So they are now what we would call part of our ExCom team. And that means that each of those sustainability managers sit right there under the GM with all of the other heads of department and have an overarching responsibility to ensure that we are rapidly deploying sustainability initiatives in our properties. And the benefit there is that we can make positive change today. And I think that's very exciting from a Six Senses perspective.
Yeah, can I just add in there as well? And I think, and certainly I think from a resort such as Six Senses, and we were very involved with lifestyle brands, and in the days when Thomas Cook were around with their Casa Cook and the Cook's Club. And what we found in that, it was following a theme which and a genuine lifestyle theme. I mean, half the groups now, half the world have hijacked the term lifestyle, but they're not lifestyle. It just happens to be a name that they like, and the marketeers have cottoned onto it. However, true lifestyle is what the millennials want, and I think what they want is they want natural. And I think the days of a brand being a brand are coming to an end. I think a brand will be a brand on name only, on the basis that your modern traveler is looking for authenticity. He's looking for naturalness. He's not looking for Blackwood at the seaside because it happens to be the brand specification, or every hotel smells the same. And when you're at the sea, you don't necessarily want to smell flowers, you want to smell the sea. I don't necessarily want a Mediterranean look when I'm sitting outside the Mediterranean. And I mean, there's obviously there is a place for that. And I think that there'll be a transformation in the whole brand presentation and I mean, you only have to speak to banks and investors in properties who pull their hair out about the amount of times that they have to refurbish a property on the basis of keeping up the look of the brand, you know, and even if that look doesn't suit the destination where it is, or even the client base that they've got, but it has to suit the look and the feel of the group. And some of these groups, they've gone into the leisure market, or actually geared to the corporate city market, and they've tried to bring their corporate city look and feel into the resort aspect of it, and then demanding huge refurbishment costs and I think those days are over. I don't think that the public will allow it. I don't think the profitability of these places will sustain that. I think the wastefulness of the refurbishment that they have to do on that basis, particularly major refurbishment, will economically not be viable. So I think in that sense, you're going to get a whole new directive coming out on how to maintain properties, how to build naturally, give a natural destination orientated feel, look and feel to it. And I think those will certainly be the properties which become the most successful in the future, and the groups which follow that will be the most successful in the future, and the most attractive to both owner and lenders as well.
Mike, if I could just jump in and make a comment there as well, I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think as we move forward, certainly hospitality stays, hotel and particularly resort stays, it's going to be all about experience. It's about creating bespoke, memorable moments for our guests. I think that's what is going to be super important moving forward. And right on the back of those experiences are concepts like sustainability and the sustainable experience that guests are able to enjoy in their properties, much in the same way that wellness is going to increasingly, I feel, become an important part of the guest experience. But I think you're absolutely right. The days of building hotels out of a box are long gone, and I think certainly experiential hospitality is where we're headed in the future, most definitely.
And I guess that goes back to the education side as well. So we need to educate right.
I was going to say that I think hotel schools have a very significant role to play in this agenda, because what this means is we have to embed sustainability across our curriculum. Sustainability shouldn't be just a subject or a topic of one of the weeks in the semester. Going back to what Michael and Aaron are saying, that it should be embedded in marketing as well. When we develop a product, that awareness of sustainability and what the market wants about sustainability, that's marketing. And I think this is what we are in the Blue Mountains Hotel School, what we are trying to do in the current curriculum review is to make sure that sustainability is a graduate attribute. In other words, when a student graduates, we can confidently say this student has learned or demonstrated evidence of how to apply sustainability as a decision-making principle, how to use sustainability in different aspects of management decision-making. And I think this is very important. We spoke about how important it is for a higher level decision-making to understand sustainability, but I think at the same time, young people going into the industry, if they have that mindset, if they can take leadership in that, that we are solving this problem in two directions, and that will certainly make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have literally a couple of minutes left, and the biggie, I guess, with all of these luxurious properties, whether you're in the Maldives or in some exclusive islands or in Saudi or wherever we are, is tackling the long haul flight situation, or flight shaming, as I've been reading up on. So, Mike, what's your view on this? And I think we'll just go around the screen.
I think we could be heading for a name and shaming syndrome in possibly in elements of the travel world, depending on how how robust we keep on talking about millennials, but certainly millennials and younger age groups are in their sustainability beliefs and thing. And when I talk about name and shaming, is at what stage could possibly people be put off taking a long haul flight or going on an unsustainable holiday on the basis that their friends or family won't necessarily approve. And it sounds quite drastic, but I think we've got to be aware that this could become a thing. Suddenly someone, if you say, oh well, I'm going to some long haul great islands in the middle of somewhere, and it's going to take me 7 hours of flying, and people will start looking and saying, well, hang on, is that a sustainable approach to the individual's responsibility to travel? So forget everything that we've been talking about now, which is the us as operators and owners and developers in the industry, and our responsibility. Now we're heading to the responsibility on the part of the traveller, and what peer pressure they start getting put under in order to think. And at one stage they would brag about going around the world on it, and we could be heading for a possible scenario where it just becomes unfashionable to spend. And obviously the industry, the travel industry, we talk about planes, and the planes are becoming far more fuel efficient, and the cost per head for fuel burning is and per mile is dropping by the day almost with these new engines. But the point is, it still is very expensive, and I think it's just something which we've all got to be aware of. It. We're all in the industry, we're all in the luxury thing. We don't want that to come in to play. And I think there are various organizations, like, as Erin, I'm sure you'll tell us now, where they're actually tackling this, and that's quite an interesting way to see how this can be tackled.
And Aaron, what's your take on this?
Yeah, look, I think it's a great point, and it's something that is certainly a concern. From again with some of our properties in Six Senses, certainly Six Senses eBay has come out with a new strategy to deal with exactly that. And what we've started to do now is offer carbon offset rates for our guests that are coming to stay at Ziggy Bay, for example. So, if you're taking a flight, for example, from London, and you're flying into Dubai to then travel out to Ziggy, then we do offer packages with a dedicated carbon offset. And what happens is that offset that then gets invested into sustainable energy production programs, and it is something that we've found to be actually fantastic. It's a way of putting back. It's a way of really addressing that issue of unsustainable travel in the best possible way that we can today. Obviously, I think more fuel efficient transportation is certainly the way to go in the long term. Don't disagree with that at all. But we have to do something now, and so this is what we have. I think it's not just about aircraft travel, though. It's about that transfer from the airport to the hotel. And certainly at our Six Senses properties, we're investing in hybrid vehicles and energy efficient vehicles to address the issue of unsustainable or non-fuel efficient transportation. So, this is something that we're doing at Six Senses, and I think it's pretty cutting edge. I'm not aware of a lot of other brands that are running programs such as this at the moment, but I suspect it is something that's going to become more popular in future, definitely.
And Emma, have you seen, of any of the hotels you work with or tourism, have you seen anything extra you'd like to add around this piece about long haul?
I think long haul travel will look. This is from the beginning of time. People want to travel. I think this is part of our nature. We are curious. We want to explore new experiences and all that, especially for young people, or actually across all age group. So I think long-haul travel is here to stay, but it is about, like what Aaron is saying, what other alternatives we have as a solution to address our carbon footprint. And I think at the moment, the carbon offset market is still still quite young. I mean, this concept has been around for some years, but it hasn't really taken off to a large scale. And I think this is where opportunities lie, is to educate the consumer. There's so many different schemes, which are the good ones, which are the not so reliable ones, and to convince consumers that this is the right decision to make. And again, this is where education can come in, not just to educate our students, but the public.
It's fantastic. It's such an interesting topic. I think we could all talk about this for hours. But we're coming up to the end of our 30 minutes. So if there's anything, Mike, finish off with a line or two, something you would like to see in the future, which people could take away in terms of a word of wisdom.
Okay, I mean, the only thing I just to try and make a point of everything we've spoken about, and and it's quite a shocking statistic that I read the other day, and that the concrete production in the world accounts for 4.4 billion tons. Just the production of concrete, 4.4 billion tons of CO2 a year. And that is the equivalent of what America produces. So worldwide concrete production attributes to 4.4 billion tons of CO2 a year. And that's equivalent to America. That's 5% of the world's CO2. And that just puts in perspective the cost of building and what we do. Now, obviously, that's worldwide building, but the tourism industry accounts for a tremendous amount of new builds in the world. And, they say that in the next, by 2050, we're going to double the square footage that we've already built in the world. So just think about the amount of building that's going to come, and just think about the cost to the atmosphere just on concrete. And buildings generally, they say, contribute 40% of the CO2 to the world, and whether that's embedded or 2/3 of it, which is the running, air conditioning and all aspects of it. So, and our industry is a building orientated industry. So whether we've got the airport building, we've got the building housing the stations and the transport, other forms of transport, or the hotels themselves. And I think the message has to be that we have to become a sustainable industry, and we can start with how we build, how we do it, and then go on to possibly the smaller, as equally as important but less significant aspects of sustainability. And now, obviously, the ones the less important ones, but as important, can be done quickly, and you could start tomorrow. Which is the plastic ones. The building and developing new concretes and more sustainable concretes. And I think when we spoke about the banks and investment, they've got to be willing to they've got to insist that owners do use the new types of concrete, or the more or building materials on a whole, sustainable building materials. I think it has to come in place, and possibly an element of operators' profit has to come out towards the cost of that, as an idea, and operators won't like that, but to all intents and purposes, the money's got to come from somewhere, and I think to make hotels and the travel industry more viable, we've all got to cut in, and owners obviously have to if the cost increases because of sustainability, owners are the ones who are taking the hit at the moment, and it's possibly that it has to be shared between operator, owner, and traveller, and in some way. And I think an offset program, I think, could be remarkable. I think the industry is probably ready for an offset program, which is not a scam offset program, because there have been a lot of dubious offset programs in the past, maybe, which is one of the reasons why it never really took off. And Emma's right. I mean, I've been reading about offset for a long time, and it hasn't. But maybe there's a world tourism body that could actually take this on and actually drive an offset program. And whether it's a reforestation of the Amazon, or having ships in the ocean cleaning up the plastic, or whatever you're doing to justify the additional spend, I think it would be a great idea. And I commend Six Senses for having already initiated it. And I think well done on that. And hopefully their program can have legs and move on.
It's fascinating. It's collaborative effort. So I'd like to finish off on. So thank you so much, Mike, Emma and Aaron. It's been an absolute pleasure. And yeah, I just admire all of what you guys are doing. So thank you very much for sharing your insights with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Take
Great
care.
talking.
Thanks for helping.